that Ann and I have a thing about frogs and toads, and it comes from a children's story where frog is the perceiver and toad is the judging type, and I am the INFJ toad, and Ann is the ENFP frog. And if you want to know more about that, we'll be around the conference the whole time. But we keep finding things with frogs and toads, and as we were thinking about this whole idea of finding focus in the digital age, does everyone know whether when you put frogs or lobsters into boiling water, they hop right out? Yeah. And so if you want frog's legs for dinner, what you do is you put the frog into warm water, and then you turn up, and they'll swim around happily, and you just keep turning up the temperature, and voila, you have, I know, it's gross.
Do you know this from experience?
No. No. But we're going to be exploring what's gone on with the digital age where we've been like the frogs in the warm water is our big point here. So we're going to be looking at where this bandwidth quiz came from, and we kept seeing people trickle in to taking it. How many of you did take it in advance? Quite a bit of the room. Thank you very much, because that'll just pump you up for what we're doing, we hope. And we'll tell you what we learned about type and bandwidth. There are connections. We were in a coffee shop in Oxford yesterday, waiting for the rain to... Well, no, we were out fine in the rain Monday and Tuesday. But at any rate, we were saying, you know, we got to remember this talk is about type as well, because we are at a type conference, and there are connections in it. We come from that. And what it takes to stay focused in the digital age. So that's where we're going in the next 90 minutes. If that doesn't sound like what you signed up for, we don't have another plan. So
you can't leave anyway because you don't have your device.
That's right. No, we got this covered. Okay, so what is bandwidth? The idea of bandwidth, the more we've learned about the brain, what we know is we need to fuel it. And there's actually just one bucket of fuel, no matter what you're doing with this brain. So Kelly McGonigal in the Willpower Instinct talks about the willpower we use to lead, to strategize, to persevere, to keep our cool, to avoid eating that donut, to work out, to slow down key decisions. It all comes from that same bucket of fuel. If you use it up one way, you don't have it for something else. And this is like an explanation behind road rage, for example. People have used up that bucket of willpower and therefore don't have it available. Has anyone ever had a tough day at work and found their patience a little short at home? There's research on how when they'll have people sit and read magazines or sit and do a hard mathematics task, and then they'll usher them out of the room past a table that's got apples and cake on it. And the people that read the magazine take the apples. The people that did the hard math take the cake, right? So we really just are drawing on this one bucket all the time. And a couple years ago, I was asked to keynote for an organization where I've been involved in the leadership development for several years. Every year they select about 15 candidates out of this huge university system for a 2-year training program to potentially become a university president. So this is a very high-powered group of people. And the first 3 rounds of candidates that I was involved with, they took MBTI Step 2, they took an EQ assessment, and then they also, we had a 360 instrument, and so we had to get feedback from 9 or 10 of their peers and bosses and everything else. And it had always gone like clockwork, and we'd schedule our sessions and meet with them and everything else. But this last go-around, Ann was another one of the coaches, and there was a change in the water. We couldn't get them to complete their instruments. Not only that, but like they'd been nominated by their current sponsors, and they had mentors assigned to them, and those people were too busy to turn in the 360 results. We were spending all our time chasing them down. And we weren't getting paid for it. That was another eating up our bandwidth. You know, we just had this little
wondering if there was something wrong with you. You're like, what's wrong?
Yeah, why don't they like me? Because we're both NFs, you know. We want to. So at any rate, since I had a keynote opportunity, it was my premise that they were falling into the myth of you can do more with less, and that we just have to keep doing more as the university. It was, you know, all university systems have some resource issues. And so they were expected to do more work. And I thought, these people are flooded. They are not being able to operate correctly. So at the keynote, I gave a 15-point quiz. This is, Tuesday I get this idea, and so I write down my 15 questions based on what I know about brain energy and bandwidth, and I flip it over to Anne because Anne knows a lot more with her background with brain-injured people and doing speech therapy. And we tweaked the questions, and I gave it orally to the room of candidates, university presidents, sponsors, bigwigs, right? And on that quiz, there was a total possible of 60 points. And as I read off questions like, I work uninterrupted for 60 minutes at a time, there were groans in the room. I schedule time between meetings so that I'm not hurried or rushed. That one brought laughs. I had people out of 60 points that were my coaching candidates score as low as 10 points, folks. And the conversation around it was huge at the dinner. It was, I got emails that night saying, I have to change, I've got to do something. And satisfying us, but disturbing to the coaching program was, it actually disrupted the whole weekend. The candidates talked about nothing, but we've got to get our bandwidth under control. So that was the start of this. And about 2 weeks after that, I had an opportunity to work at another company, and I thought, well, I'll try it again, right? And 70% of the employees scored below what we thought was an acceptable bandwidth. And so then we thought we were onto something and formalized it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's actually where it came from. So we moved from intuition to research. Anne and me, the NF, the true, hey, let's try this and see what happens with a group of, university presidents. Good testing ground, right? Really safe. So anyway, it worked. And Anne was out to coffee with, does anyone know Greg Husko from the United States? He's a wonderful INTP. And Anne was explaining what we'd done, and he said, data? You've got data? Can I play with your data? Which is just music to my ears, because I know how to use stats packages, but I'd really rather have coffee with you than do that. So Greg volunteered to run all our data and helped us formalize the questions a little bit. And we were pretty sure they fell into some groups. And so that was round one. And you actually took round two. But on round one, we had more questions. And we knew there were 4 big areas: how you fuel your brain, how you stay focused, filtering information, and then what it looks like when you're flooded. That was our first set of F's going into this, so that you can stay energized, effective, efficient, and engaged, was our little tagline for all of this. And when we did the second round of research, it turned out there were 6 buckets, not 4, of what we were finding. Greg actually did factor analysis for us, and he really had fun with our data. It's so fun to...
He was awesome.
He was awesome.
He was awesome. It's unfortunate that we know that about him now, because we'll keep bugging him. He's really good.
Yeah. And then he sent us, like a packet of paper this thick, and walked us through it on the phone and explained what he found and tagged all the things we needed to tell you. So it was great. But this is what we're thinking. The new quiz has 120 points, and from what we can tell when we're coaching people, if you're above 90, you're probably feeling pretty good about how you're managing your time and staying focused in the digital age. You've got sufficient mental capacity. When you sit down to do something, you're not thinking you should be someplace else. That you've got good impulse control, patience, and so on. The mediocre bandwidth, you're probably doing well in some areas, and there's some areas of life where you're feeling a little out of control, is what we're thinking. We don't have cutoff points. We didn't have a research grant. We just had Greg doing this for free. So, there's some things we'd still love to know, and we've probably got the data to do it, but this is where we're at. But pretty much everyone we talked to that was below 60 was already upset. They're, saying that we're stuck in too busy of a life, or I'm not engaged at work anymore. And this is what's been cool on the corporate side, because when we actually have the data to say if your employee scores are low, it is somehow affecting their ability to be energized, efficient, effective, and engaged. Are those kind of key words? Do you want employees that lack energy, aren't efficient, are ineffective, and are disengaged? So we get management attention, and I'll tell you a story. We'll tell a story at the end about what's really happened. But for now, we know that when people are below 60, it's a big coaching conversation. And so we haven't had anybody disagree. When people have high scores, they're going, yeah, I'm functioning pretty well. And when they've got low scores, the data's in front of them already, and they're saying, yeah, I'm not happy. There's something that's not working.
Okay, so we put a copy of the bandwidth quiz on your table. You have to share to look at them. And it's what I'd like to have you do, just look at them and talk at your tables. Which of the questions, 3 or 4 or 5 questions, do you think that were scored rarely? In other words, which ones would you think would be the lowest? And just kind of think about that.
Get your ideas of which ones you think.
So what came out of this?
This takes which one do you think came out?
Okay, so you can see which categories were.
And then
Okay, what's the question?
some of them comments. I don't know why this came up with.
Absent-minded social media.
Okay. How about this table? Name one that you thought may have been answered rarely or low score?
The monitoring the usage of internet surfing thing.
Monitoring internet surfing. Okay. How about this table?
We selected after work. I still have plenty of patience for the most important people in my life, and
Okay.
Yeah, we
yes,
What else?
also the one about the multitasking.
Multitasking. I avoid multitasking. Okay. How about this table back here?
Still voting.
Temple says we didn't know we were meant to do that, but let's walk with Pia. Well, that's good then. It's good to all the same page. Power nap, there you go.
Power nap. Okay. How about in the back? Attend to email at set times.
The email, okay.
And how about this middle table here? Tora and Richard's table and Marky.
I didn't have that consensus. We didn't know that was part of it.
Oh,
Okay.
that's okay. Just throw one out there.
Regular meditation.
Regular meditation.
Okay.
Okay. The back table come up with a consensus? Oh, good. I hope the discussions were good.
Okay, you know what? You guys are really intuitively sharp. The survey said power nap was one of them. I use power naps to clear my mind. How long is a power nap usually?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, right. People don't take that 20 minutes to clear the fog webs from their brain. Okay, what else? The survey said I attend emails at set times rather than constantly. That's also on your list.
And there were 6 that were, 6 out of the 32 questions, there was a deep fall off. So Greg said we needed to tell you all 6. So,
Yep.
okay?
I avoid multitasking. You got that one on there.
Don't you love that?
It's one of my favorite pictures.
We had so much fun finding pictures. Sorry.
I have regular meditation, journal, or reflective practice. Daria, why would we need reflective practice?
Gosh, well, you know, there's this little thing about mindfulness, but body mindfulness, because the nervous system runs through the whole body,
Yep,
not just up in the brain case.
yep. And if you want to know more, Sunday you can learn, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
There's also quite a bit of research coming out on the most productive scientists and writers, and they choose those because there's a way to measure productivity in terms of research papers and scientific finds. The most productive ones through history have worked about 25 hours a week on their body of work. They may do some administrative stuff in that other time, but whether you're talking Einstein or Dickens or current Nobel Prize winners, they take that other 15 hours and they go walking and they have hobbies like music, and when the time spent on actual work goes up above 25 hours, productivity goes down. They do less. They make fewer contributions. Isn't that comforting?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
And this one, I set aside the uninterrupted blocks of 60 minutes to work on projects that require deep concentration is also problematic as well. Well, there are, many are problematic, but these are the 6 that Greg said we have to mention.
I did this workshop with a room full of school principals, school heads, and when I put up the slides, one of the women raised her hand and said, "Who is finding the time to do this, and how are you doing it?" Because school principals get interrupted all the time. It's the nature of the job, and we had this rich discussion on how the people who were doing it were like at one school. There was a designated day where any one of the administrators could not be interrupted. They were off the ticket for whatever they were responsible for, and their assistants took over. Just as an example, that they had made this a priority to have that kind of time.
And the last one, wait for this. Here we go. Really? Okay. There. I keep the phone off when I'm driving. Can you imagine? That's also a real temptation and a real issue.
And we all know now that driving using a device is like driving while intoxicated, right? Okay?
All right.
Okay. So, again, our whole idea here is that you're trying to stay fueled and focused and filtering information so that you can do all the things on the right. Emotional intelligence goes out the window if we're not fueled in the brain. We need willpower to do that. So this is really key to a lot of what we're doing with our clients, is trying to make sure they understand how our brains work. And there's well, we'll get to that in the generational stuff.
Yep.
Okay. So going back to our frog in the kettle analogy, and a nod toward England. Does anyone know where we are with this photo? Yes. Yes, very important kettles in the world. So we've talked briefly. Obviously the internet and emails are part of this. But what are the changes in office norms? And even if you're self-employed, this affects you just like it affected me and Anne when we were trying to coach these people in this crazy organization that I began the talk with. So what changes in workplace expectations, office norms, technology have had these frog in the kettle unintended consequences? Talk at your tables for a minute. What else has happened, say, in the last 20 years that's changed how we look at work and productivity?
The fact that can be
Feeling of all those opportunities that you may lose, or all the dangers that may come, so that a sense of urgency.
The sense of urgency because we might lose opportunities. That kind of the pace of business and
24/7 cycle.
yeah, you're never quite off. Yes.
And the lack of emotive content in conversation. Some people will use smileys, but not most people, and so a lot of times they get wrong in the stick and they're giving just the factual information, but not all the nuances that they usually come across in the person-to-person conversation.
Right, so with the decrease in personal conversations, we've lost a lot of the emotive content that's made some of this an unintended consequence. Very much so. What else came up?
There is the value of being able to text and email for asynchronous conversations that you can fence off an hour without interruption.
Right.
If you just put your device.
And that's what we're talking about.
If they don't ring you on the phone.
Right.
So the text approach is helpful in that respect.
Open office environments has crept into a lot of places.
The open office environment so that we can collaborate, but of course we all need time to think, and we know that better than most, that we all have an extroverted and an introverted side.
Inefficient meetings because people are not present. They are looking at something.
Inefficient meetings because people are on their devices.
Or not prepared.
Or they're not prepared.
Or not prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
No downtime.
No downtime is another consequence, right?
Yeah, linked to that, the fact Wi-Fi is available even in airplanes now, so it was the one excuse you could have before to disconnect for a moment.
This very trip. Doggone it. Now you can message.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Someone said they used to call it a ball and chain, because we're tied to our offices if we aren't careful how we do this. It's just an interesting thought that's kind of imprisoned us. I'm going to just come up here.
I think in the old days, things like a typewriter was actually helped you be more efficient, whereas these days our modern devices, things like social media, actually make us a lot less efficient. We're wasting a lot.
Right. The typewriter kept you focused. Now that we're on our computers, the social media is the temptation. Not that anyone would check Facebook during a meeting.
The fear of taking courses that actually just sitting there doing nothing.
People are afraid of doing nothing, and this is, that like I mean, productivity's been studied for 125 years or whatever, so that's not new. But being able to measure it the way we can, and thinking that always on is going to be productive, has gotten worse.
This general shift toward a gig economy, to contract work, to things being on a very short-term basis.
Yeah. So
Or instant.
instant. Yeah, and the whole downsizing and trying to do more with less has intensified as well.
Yes, I was going to say that sort of scientific management, the pressure to get more and more out of that, it means work intensification, including loss of relationships, loss of porosity. So things like coffee breaks, or so fewer times to meet in an environment which is full of surveillance and performance management and fear. And the feeling of running away and running out of time and the bottom line. So there are a lot of tyrannies, and real ones that are enacted and ones in the mind.
Exactly.
That I think create this space where there is, and also there isn't a drawbridge anymore.
Right.
You can't leave it behind. You can't clock out.
Right.
In the way that perhaps our parents did.
And part of our point here when we're working with organizations is we have data saying, yes, you're doing all that and it's making your employees less effective and less engaged. This is not working. How many of you have been in an office environment, well, it would have been 20, 25 years ago now, where the most important work happened around the coffee pot? You come over and say, who's got an answer on this? Or I just got off the phone and someone say that happened to me, and all of a sudden you have a breakthrough on something, right? To think that that's time wasted is just crazy.
We have one more remark.
Another one, which is, I think, data overload. The fact we can track and measure. We take too many photos, we write too many emails, but we measure too many things, and
we aren't measuring the right things.
Yeah.
We know how children are reading, but we don't know if they like to read, for example. Okay.
So I think one of the things we need to talk about just a little bit here is the idea of how this all happened, because the digital age did not come with a training manual. We all kind of got thrown into it, and we developed habits around that. And one thing about a habit I want to say right off the bat is oftentimes we have these habits, and then we have the rationale so that they don't sound like just something we're doing automatically. We've put some sort of rationale behind it, like I check my emails 15 times a day because what if I miss something, right? So we put rationale behind this process, which is the formation of habit. So basically, it's this pattern in which you're getting triggered to respond to something. You might hear a notification or something might trigger you. So you go and you pick up your phone or you look at your email or whatever, and you get a benefit. Sometimes it's not a benefit. In other words, the email isn't there, or the thing you've been expecting isn't there. But it's that dopamine that drives you to keep looking. And so I know that sometimes if I go to bed with this thing, on my nightstand, first thing I do before I even wake up, and I think, well, my rationale is I'm checking to see if my kids are alive. No, somebody texts me some anecdote or something. But the real truth is it's habit. It's habit. Okay, thank you. So when you make concerted decisions,